This is my room. Okay. And then these are my flashcards. Good morning, everyone. So today I have a question that I want to ask you all. How many of you can tell me off of the top of your head, number-wise, how much crime you think happens annually within the United States? Couldn't tell me? I probably couldn't tell you either, just right off the top of my head. However, you would think, with crime being as prevalent as it is today, that as US citizens, we would have more of an idea of just how much crime happens. But the reality is that crime is consistently going on, and it's a lot to keep track of. However, we do need to realize that crime is a huge issue, and it leads to so many problems and so many negative impacts on the country as a whole. So when we look at it, according to FBI.gov, this was in the year of 2017, there was a reported violent crime every 24.6 seconds, a reported murder every 30.5 minutes, rape every 3.9 minutes, robbery 1.7 minutes, and an aggravated assault every 39 seconds. Okay, now putting this into perspective, that is a lot of crime that is happening. These are only looking at a few types of crime, not even including things like property offenses or other types of crime. However, this is already so much to encompass of crime within the United States. Now, when we add that all together, that's an estimated 1,247,321 reported violent crimes just for the year of 2017 alone. Now, that's a lot of crime. Okay, so when we look at the U.S., we see a main 5 types of violent criminal offenses. These include rape, robbery, murder and non-negligent manslaughter, aggravated assault, and gang violence. These are the main 5 types, not including all the others. There's so much, though, that happens within the United States that maybe we don't serve to realize. Okay, so according to encyclopedia.com, the rising cost of crime prevention and criminal justice systems reflects the rising cost of crime to society. This is a statement that really does reflect on just how much crime is costing us as a nation. So we're putting more spending, putting more money into these systems for criminal justice, fighting against crime. And by putting more money into that, that means that crime is increasingly becoming a higher problem for the U.S. as a whole, and something that we need to start looking at. Okay, another impact when we look at crime on the macroscopic level, we're seeing impacts on the economy. Okay, there's crime that discourages domestic and foreign direct investments. It reduces firms' competitiveness. So just a few impacts on the economy that make it more inefficient and impacts the U.S. as a whole. And just one of the things that we're looking at. Okay? So another point I want to lead to is that crime has all these costs. You may not see them a lot or realize every part and every way that crime affects us, but there's costs, there's inconveniences, there's stress, anxiety, depression, there's even lifestyle changes, okay? So let's take a look at a neighborhood. Say there's this particular community and a murder happens. What do you see the people doing? They start moving out because no one wants to live in a town with crime like that going on, okay? So now we have migration costs. We've got costs everywhere in these little situations, this just being one of them, okay? So we also see, as I mentioned earlier, public and private spending on fighting against crime. We see social costs, like medical costs, lost earnings. We also see costs of victimization, okay? According to OVC Archive, direct tangible costs to crime victims annually are estimated to be about $105 billion in medical expenses, lost earnings, and public program costs related to victim assistance. And then once you add in pain, suffering, and reduced quality of life, that increases our cost to about $450 billion annually, which is a ton of money to have as a cost on the US as a whole, okay? Another thing I want you guys to think about is that crime affects individuals like victims, but so many other people too. It affects victims and their families and their friends and the communities around them. The US as a whole, crime impacts me, it impacts you, it impacts the people around us. Crime has such an impact that we don't typically realize it as much as we probably should, but it affects all of us within the US, even if it hasn't happened in your community yet or around you. Okay, and so by mentioning this, I'm trying to say that crime is an issue that needs to be addressed. This is something we need to spread more knowledge on because it has such an impact negatively on the US as a whole. And once we start taking a step back to look at and address these problems, we can try and control crime and try and slow it within the US, and also take steps to support more preventative measures or even adding in support groups for victims and the like. In this way, we can start trying to address these issues and make the US better as a whole, because crime really does have an impact that you may not realize. After all, the next crime could happen to someone you know, or maybe it could even directly impact you in some type of way. Thank you.